Hey everyone, welcome to my new tutorial. Today we are going to create this cute bedroom illustration and I really hope you will enjoy this one, and if you do, don't forget to leave that like, and if you're new around here, hit that subscribe. Now let's jump into Blender, and first of all let's select the light and the cube, press X and delete, and let's press Shift A and we'll add a plane here. Now tap into the edit mode, let's press S and scale it up to about like 4 meters or something, maybe something like this, maybe a little bit bigger. And let's press 2 for edge select. Select these two edges in the back, press Shift D to duplicate them, right click to release in place, and then press P and choose separate the selection. They'll separate it here into a new object, so we can now tab out, select the new object, tab into the edit mode, and let's press A to select all and E then Z to extrude, and let's extrude it like this here. And now we'll set up the camera so we have the exact view of what we are creating from the start. So let's tab out and let's hit 0 on a numpad for a camera view. So let's select it right here and let's go to the camera settings and let's switch this to orthographic. And let's go to the output settings and let's change the resolution to something like 1600 to 1200. And now I would like to have more like a top-down view. So let's press period on a keyboard, switch to 3D cursor, and let's press R, then X twice, and rotate it like this. Okay, that will work nicely. And now let's switch this back, so press period and choose medium point. You can also do it right here, and now press G then Z and move this up right about here in the middle. And now we'll adjust the orthographic scale, so let's go to the camera settings and let's slide this all the way so we have some breathing room there. And now let's give this some volume, so let's select the walls, tap into the edit mode, press A to select all, and Alt E and extrude faces along normals. And as you start extruding, you can see it's not perpendicular, so you can additionally press S to enable even scaling and do something like this. Let's make these walls nice and thick. And let's go here and enable face orientation. That will show you whether you have normals flipped. So let's press A and Shift N to recalculate normals, so the red color disappears there. Now we can tab out. If you're just starting Blender and you have trouble following all the tutorials, make sure to check out my courses as well, where in addition to the step-by-step instructions, you also get full in-depth explanation of all the tools and all the steps, and you get to learn everything from simple low poly design all the way to full character illustration, textured environments, even a little bit of sculpting and hard surface modeling. So if you're interested, please check out the link in the description. And let's select the floor, tab into the edit mode, and let's press A to select all and S to scale it up. I want this slightly larger than the walls there. And now let's create few planks. So let's press Ctrl R and increase number of cuts with the mouse wheel to something like this. Let's make it nice, thick and stylized, something like that. And right click to release. And now we can press V. That will separate this, and right click to release in place. So these are now separate stripes. And we can select these edges right there. If the selection doesn't work like that for you, make sure you're in the edge select mode. And let's right click and choose subdivide. That will create vertices in the middle here. So if you go into the vertex select, you can see those new vertices right there. So let's go to the top view by pressing 7 on a numpad. And let's select all of these vertices by holding Shift, press G then Y, and move them out like this. And now we can press Ctrl Shift and B to enable bevel and increase number of cuts with the mouse wheel, so we create these nice rounded planks there. Now let's select some of these, so let's hold Alt key and click here. Now Alt and Shift and select, for example, these and the last one. And now I will just deselect everything else here, so hold Control and deselect these edges. Make sure you grab these as well, and let's press G then Y and move them back a bit like this. So we break that line a little bit visually, like this. Okay, I really like that. So now press A and E to extrude this down. Let's make it thick like this. And now again, you can see the normals are flipped. So let's press A and Shift N to recalculate. Now let's tab out, let's press Shift A and let's add a plane. Let's look from the front by pressing 1 on a numpad. Let's press G then Z, move this down, tab into the edit mode, and let's press S to scale it up, right up until here, and now E to extrude. That'll be the part that the diorama is basically standing on. And let's Ctrl and Alt and click one of the edges here. That will select these edges all around. Let's look from the camera by pressing 0 on a numpad. And let's press Ctrl B and bevel it like this and increase number of cuts as well. Okay, and again press A and Shift N to recalculate and tab out. And now let's add a top part here. So select the walls, tab into the edit mode, press 3 for face select or switch it right here. Select these top faces, press Shift D, right click to release, and again P and separate. And again we separate this into a new object this way. So tab out, select that new object. Now tab into the edit mode, press A to select all and E to extrude like this. Now we can alt click this line right here that will select the loop all around, and we can press Alt S and scale it like this, and now press S again to enable even scaling, similar like with the extrusion. Let's do something like this. Okay, and this is quite nice here. So let's go to the camera view, tab out, select the camera. Let's readjust and maybe adjust the orthographic scale tiny bit more like this. And now we'll add some basic bevel modifiers. So select the planks here, go to the modifiers panel, and let's add bevel modifier. And let's increase the segments to 3 and reduce the amount like this. And you can see the separation here in the middle because we separated these edges before. So now let's go to the shading, enable harden normals, and in the geometry section switch this to arc. This is not visible here, but it will be useful when we are cutting windows and stuff. So right click and shade smooth. And now let's zoom out and let's select all of the other objects by holding Shift with the planks as last, and let's go and copy the bevel modifier to all of these, right click and shade smooth. So now we have the same bevel modifier everywhere. And let's cut out some window. So let's select this wall, tap into the edit mode, go to the face select, select the front face, hold Shift S and snap cursor to select it. So we are now in the middle here, so tab out. Now let's press Shift A and let's add a plane, press R then X and 90 to rotate 90 degrees, and let's confirm, and we'll press G then Z and move this up a little bit. And of course let's make it a little bit wider, so tab into the edit mode, press S then X and scale it up like this. And now let's tab out and let's make a duplicate, so Shift D like this, and tab into the edit mode and E to extrude, and now press A and let's move it back, so G then Y to move it back so it goes through the other side. And now we can tab out and let's select the wall here, and for this you need the bool tool active. So let's go edit, preferences, get extensions, search for bool, and you will see the bool tool available right here. You will click install and you can see I have it already installed. And now if you press Ctrl and minus on a numpad, you will create the hole there. And right here in the modifiers tag you will see the boolean modifier is added right after the bevel modifier, but it's not what we need, so let's move it above so the beveling includes the hole made with the boolean modifier. And now we can select this plane, and that's why I duplicated it, because I have the same size plane available now, and I can just press G then Y and move it back here into the opening and continue creating the window. So first of all, let's tab in, let's press Ctrl R and slide this down, and we'll create the window sill first. So press 3 for face select, select this one, and again P enter to separate. Same as before, we can tab out and select that new object, tab back in and extrude it like this. And again we can reuse the same bevel modifier, so we can hold Shift, select for example this object and copy to select it, and now we can select the sill and just change the amount here like this. And now we can select the rest of the plane and continue creating our window, so we can press A and I to inset like this. And again I will separate this so I have the plane to use for later, so press P and enter. And now I'll press A while still in the first object and press E to extrude like this. And now tab out and I will hold Shift, select the sill and again copy the bevel modifier. And I have the window like this. Maybe we can adjust the bevel modifier on the wall here so it's not so strong like that. And now just select this plane, press G then Y and move it right here. Maybe we can make it a little bit larger so it better touches the window frame, but all in all this is okay. And now if we select all of these parts by holding Shift and select the boolean object cutter as last, press Ctrl P and parent to object, we can now, if we want, move the whole window with the opening, even scale it. So this is a very practical way how to create windows. So now let's create some bed and some furniture. So let's shift and right click here, and let's press shift A and add a plane. Tab into the edit mode and let's press S then X and scale it up like this. And now press G then Z, move it up, and E to extrude, something like this. Now let's tab out, and with the cursor still there, let's press shift A and let's add a plane. Let's look from the top by pressing 7 on a numpad, tab into the edit mode, and we can enable X-ray view here. Press S to scale it down and just move it here to the side. Let's look from the front by pressing 1 on a numpad, and let's just extrude this. And now we can add a mirror modifier here and enable Y-axis as well. Now let's adjust the height, so press G then Z, move it down a little bit. We can tab out and let's just click here and apply that modifier because I want these to be different heights. So tab back into the edit mode and let's just select these top faces, press G then Z and move them up like this. And now we can easily add other parts here. So we can reuse the geometry same as before. Let's disable the X-ray view, tab into the edit mode here, and I will press 2 for edge select. You can see it selected right here. Select this edge, hold shift, select the other one, and press shift D to duplicate, right click to release, and again P enter to separate, tab out and select that new object. And now if we tab in, press A and F, we'll create a new face there. So now we can just select the bottom edge and press G and press G then Z and move this up. And now let's select this edge, right click and subdivide. Now let's press 1 for vertex select, select these two vertices, press G then Z and move them down like this. And now with this one, same as before, Ctrl Shift B to bevel, and we have a nice object like this here. And now press A and E to extrude, and A again to select all, press G then X and move it here in the middle. And now we can just duplicate this, so press Shift D and X to move it right there. But here we can go lower, so enable X-ray view, select all of these vertices, press G then Z and move them down like this. And finally disable X-ray view, let's tab out, select this part right here, tab into the edit mode, and we can again duplicate and reuse, so press Shift D to duplicate, P to separate, tab out, select that new object, and now tab back in, press A to select all and E to extrude like this. Now we'll use some subdivision modifier here, but before I want to change the dimensions, so press A, then S, then X to scale on X axis like this, and then S, then Y to scale on Y axis. Okay, and now let's press Ctrl R and let's add one loop right there at the bottom, and let's press Ctrl R, increase number of cuts with the mouse wheel to add 2 loops, and press S then X and scale them out like this. And let's do the same thing here, but we'll scale on Y-axis. And now if you tab out and let's go and add the subdivision surface modifier, those supporting loops will help us create this shape, and we can increase the levels to 2, right click and shade smooth, and this is what we got here. Now let's just transfer those bubble modifiers to those objects as well, so I'll use the window sill for that and copy to select it, right click and shade smooth, and now we have a nice bed here. So let's just parent everything so we have no trouble moving it around. So with this selected as last, you can see it highlighted in yellow, press Ctrl P and parent to object. So now you can press G then Shift Z to move this around. Let's move it a little bit closer here to the window because I want to add some furniture right there. So Shift, right click, press Shift A and let's add a plane. Tab into the edit mode and let's press S and scale it down here, and press E to extrude. And this will be very simple. So let's press Shift D and then S again to scale this even more. So there will be 2 parts to this. Let's press E to extrude. And now I'll press 3 for face select, select this front face, and press Shift D and then P and enter to separate the selection. Tab out, let's select it again, tab back in, and we'll go to the edge select by pressing 2, select the bottom one, press G then Z and move this up like this. And let's now press Ctrl R to cut it here in the middle, and we'll press V again, same as with the planks, to separate this. And let's press A and E to extrude, just like that. And to make it a little bit more interesting, we can press 2 for edge select, select these edges on the sides, press Ctrl B and bevel them. Let's reduce the cuts like this. Okay, and now we can select the top part here, the top face, so press 3 for face select and press G, then X, and let's move it outside like this. And now let's add the same bevel modifier, so let's hold shift, select all of the objects with the bed as last, and let's transfer those bevels, right click and shade smooth, and we have something like this here. Now let's add some handles here, so tab into the edit mode, press 3 for face select, select this face right there, let's hold shift S and snap cursor to select it, let's tab out, and let's press shift A and we'll add a UV sphere. And it doesn't have to be so dense, so I think something like 16 to 8 will be fine. Tab into the edit mode, scale it down, and press G, then X, and move it outside like this. And just right click and shade smooth in the object mode. And now I'll just eyeball it, press Alt D, then Z, and move it down here. So that's our basic furniture here. Maybe we can adjust the sizing of this tiny bit, just like that. Okay, and now let's shift right click here and create like a picture frame or something. Let's press R then Y and 90 to rotate 90 degrees. Tab into the edit mode, press S then Z, and scale it down like this. Press E to extrude, I to inset, and E to extrude again. And we can press Y to separate this and press G, then X, and move it freely like that. And now if we tab out and transfer the same bevel modifier, you will see that the middle face is separated and there is no beveling happening there, which is exactly what I want here. And now finally maybe just some lamp here. So select the furniture, let's press shift A and let's add a circle. I'll modify this to 12 segments, tab into the edit mode, let's go to the vertex select, and press S to scale it down, and now press F to fill and E to extrude. Now E to extrude again, let's make it larger, and E again, and let's make it smaller. And now alt click here and we can press Ctrl B and bevel it like this. And additionally we can alt click the top loop, press shift D, then Z, and move it up. Press S to scale, press X and delete only faces, so we're left with this. And press E then Z and extrude this down, and press S to scale it up a little bit like this. And finally we can add some thickness to it, but we can separate it. So press L, hovering over this, press P and enter to separate the selection. And of course let's press A and shift N to recalculate the normals for the bottom one. Let's tab out, select the bottom one, and let's transfer the bevel modifier again, and the angle should only capture the bottom here. So if we now press Ctrl and 1 to add subdivision surface modifier, you can see it right here. You will see that we only have this bottom part sharp. And now if we select the object and we modify the angle, you will see how the bevel catches more angles. But I think this is exactly what I want here. Let's just modify this so it's a little bit sharper. Right click, shade smooth. And now let's select the shade and let's add some solidify modifier here. Let's increase the thickness. And let's tab into the edit mode, press Ctrl R, and we'll add some supporting loops up and down. So now if we tab out and press Ctrl 2 to add subdivision surface modifier, and again you can see it right here, we get this. And I think this will be enough. No worry, there's no like light bulb or anything. You can add it if you want, but I don't think it will be seen in render, so we can just hold shift, select the bottom of the lamp, press Ctrl P and parent to object. I think this will do nicely for a simple bedroom, but for a little bit more added detail, I think like a pillow and a blanket will be fine here. So let's shift right click here, let's press shift A and we'll add a plane, tab into the edit mode, scale it down and then press S then Y and scale it on Y axis. And now let's press Ctrl R, add one loop right here and press Ctrl R and increase number of cuts to 2. So now we approximately have squares here, and we can press A and right click and subdivide to have more geometry available. And now we can just press E and extrude it slightly like this. And now tab out, press G then Z, move this up like this. And now let's go here in the physics simulation and let's add a cloud simulation. And let's scroll down, and in the field weights, let's disable gravity so it doesn't fall down. And here in the pressure, let's enable it and let's add pressure of 1. And let's play back the animation to see what happens. So it will get pressurized like this. And I think we can do more, like 2. Okay, maybe that's too much here. Or we can just go ahead and add some more geometry. So tabbing to the edit mode, press A to select all, and let's right click and subdivide. So you can see there's a little bit more geometry to work with. So now if we pressurize it, it will get more sophisticated shape like this, and I really like it. So let's just go to the modifiers panel and let's apply this. So now we have this as a shape, and we can press Ctrl 1 to add that subdivision surface modifier, right click, shade smooth, and move this down, rotate and place it here on the bed. And now with the blanket this will be very similar, but first let's select this one here, and in the physics tab let's enable collision. Let's do the same for this one and for these, because the blanket will be falling down on those. So let's shift right click here, let's press shift A, and we'll add a plane. Let's tab out, let's make it a little bit larger, and let's right click and subdivide, and we can now press shift R to repeat that same command until we have something like this. I think this will be enough for the cloud simulation. And let's give it some volume as well. So press E and extrude just like that, tiny bit. And now tab out, press G then Z and move it up, and press R then Z and rotate it slightly, and now we'll just let it fall down. So let's enable cloud, and let's move this back to the frame 0. And let's enable pressure, and we'll leave the gravity in place for this one. And for the pressure, let's do something small like 0.2, and let's play it back what happens here. Okay, and the other thing we can do is some self collision. So in the collisions, enable self collision so it doesn't go through, and we'll need some damping. So let's select the collider here, and in the soft body and cloth, let's increase the friction to something like 20. It still slides, so let's do something like 50 here, and now it barely slides, so I think this will be okay. And this looks just fine, so maybe I'll just reposition it a little bit on the x-axis here, change the rotation. This looks fine. So the moment I like it, I just pause the animation and go to the modifiers and apply this again, and press Ctrl 1 and add that subdivision surface modifier, right click and shade smooth. And here's our nice blanket, and this is basically the bedroom illustration modeled, and we can add some lighting and add some simple materials. Let's go and set up that. Let's go to the render settings and enable cycles. Switch this to GPU, make sure you enable denoising, and I will switch my denoising to GPU here, and set samples to something like 512. Go to the camera view by hitting 0 on a numpad and press Ctrl B to limit the preview only to camera bounds. You can see it highlighted in red right now, so let's hold Z and choose rendered. So now this is only the ambient occlusion present in the scene, and you can increase the brightness by increasing the world color, but of course we'll need some light. But the best way how to light this is to actually add emission to the window here. So let's go and add a new material to the window, and let's switch this to emission, and let's increase to something strong like 10, and it will feel like a nice natural light is coming through the window. So really nice result there. And now let's hold Shift S, reset cursor to world origin. Let's press Shift A, add a plane. Let's scale it up to create the background. Let's look from the front by pressing 1 on a numpad and place it down here on the bottom. So we have some background. And now let's press Shift A and let's add that area light. But this will be used mostly for the backlight. So press G then Z, move it up. Let's make it larger. I will switch this to disk and press period and switch to 3D cursor, and then R then X and place it right here, and then R then Z and 45 to rotate 45 degrees. And let's increase to something strong like 1500 and press G then Z twice to move it back, and G then Z to move it down. So this is the placement of the light here. and we get something like this. And I like it when it kind of touches the top part of the room right here. And maybe this is too strong, so let's do something like 750. Should be more than enough for a little bit of an ambient light, and let's make it larger so the shadows are softer. And then for the background itself, we can do another one. So let's press Shift D, then Z to move this down. Let's make it smaller, and then Alt R to reset the rotation so it kind of shines only on the background. And now this one can be much stronger and create that background gradient right here. Okay, I really like this, so let's give this some colors. And I have some textures available here from the Polyhaven add-on, so I will probably use that. Let me switch this to Asset Browser and to the textures, wooden textures, and let's find some. I think this laminate floor or the oak might look okay here, so I'll just drag it into the scene. By the way, if you like this texture and you want to get it, you don't need to get the add-on from Polyhaven. These textures are completely free on their website, so just go to polyhaven.com, locate this texture by name, download it, and then set it up in the node editor. So if you go to the shader editor, you will see this is the setup right there. You can pause the video and basically just repeat this setup and plug the base color, the roughness, the normal map, and the displacement map through these nodes to your principled shader on your material setup, and you should get the same result. So if you want the same result, just go download it from Polyhaven and it should work nicely. So this is what I will use right here, and by accident the mapping looks kind of okay, but I will go into the edit mode anyway, press A and press U to unwrap and Smart UV project. That should give us better result here on the sides, and I really like this, so maybe we can play with the scale a little bit to make this a little bit larger like that. But other than that, I will use mostly procedural and colored materials for the rest of the scene, but I really like to use that wooden material for the wooden objects in my scene. So for example, this furniture will be wooden too, the window frame and the sill. So for the furniture, I will use another one, and I think something a little bit different, something maybe darker, or on the contrary, maybe a little bit brighter. We'll see how it works. This is too similar, so yeah, probably something like this, a little bit darker. And now I will just use the same smart unwrapping and see how it works. I quite like it, so let me go to the shader editor and just modify the scale here. Okay, and let's do the same material here, and again I will smart UV project and add the same material there. Now for the window sill, we can use the same one as on the floor. Tab into the edit mode, press A and smart UV project. It should work nicely. And for the window, I will unwrap that manually. So let me hit slash on a numpad, tab into the edit mode, and I will press 2 for edge select. Alt click this loop and then hold Alt and Shift to select all of these other ones. Press U and mark seam, and then here in the back unwrap this loop. And then if I press A, U and unwrap angle based, if we look at the UVs right there, you'll see this is what we got. So it's like a naturally unwrap in a way where if you're a carpenter, this is how you would probably like put the wood together with these angle cuts. So let me just add the same wooden material, and this is what we get there with these visible seams. But again, these seams are in places where that makes sense. So let me hit slash on a numpad again to exit the local view. And now let's do the same thing here. So I will just go ahead and unwrap this, select the back loop, and unwrap, and let's add the darker one, and looks quite fine. But here I will add another material, so press 3 for face select, select this one, add a new material slot and hit assign, and create a new material, and let's call this picture. And I will not be importing any, but I will create like an abstract. So let's press Shift A and I'll add noise texture. And let me just plug this right here so I can see the preview. And let's play with the scale. Like this. And yeah, let's press Shift A. I will add ramp. And choose constant. And slide this around so it's like a abstract thingy here. And then I will rotate this a little bit. Let's add some more color stops. Okay. And now some more pleasing colors. So let's do like violet, blue. Okay, whatever. This will serve nicely as like a filler content for this. And we can add some coating with some reflections. So you can see the window reflected right here. And now let's select the vase. Now this will be just white material with a low roughness. And here let's add some transmission and increase the roughness. And let's hold Shift S, snap cursor to select it. Let's press Shift A. Let's add a point light. Press G then Z and move this up here. You will see this is what it will create. And we can add some power here and change the color to something like this. So we get this nice effect. Now, I will use the same with the material here. For the bed, let me just unwrap it real quick like this. Same for the legs. And let's add that same material. And here as well. Okay, I quite like this. And here we can leave this white with some roughness. And here we can change this to some nice color, like a dark blue maybe, and increase the roughness as well. And since it's a cloth, you can go ahead and use the sheen and add some weight to it. And you will see it will create this like a plush effect, and you can even color tint the plush effect here. So it will create really nice effect, and you can do the same material right there. So yeah, and here near the top I will unwrap the same as the window, and I will just mark these, mark it, and then here these in the back. Now press A, U, and unwrap. Angle based, we get something like this. And let's add that same material. Maybe even the brighter one will look fine. I think it looks okay. Maybe it will be worthwhile to switch those colors, like do the furniture brighter and then the room wood a little bit darker. But so far I really like this. I don't think I will be changing it. So let me just put a different color here on the wall, so it's not completely white like that. Okay, and maybe move this a little bit. Let me just parent it, and let's move this closer to the window here like this. Let's select the background. Let's look from the camera, and I can collapse the UV editor now. And let's add some material there as well. Maybe something blue, a little bit darker with a little bit of a roughness. And now here we can select this background light and add some color to it like this. And here finally we can tweak this color as well. And in the world settings we can add some color to blend it all together. So you can brighten up the ambience of the room a little bit, like this. But then you can also color it, so you'll see how the color fills the shadows there, and it nicely blends everything together. And now we can readjust the color of the background here. And finally, if you think it's too dark here in the shadows, you can always just duplicate some of these lights, place them around your scene, you know, of course, change the color to something warmer, and let's make them really soft, something like 300, and place them higher and to the side here, so it kind of creates a little bit more of that light. If you look at it with or without, there's certain difference in the light quality for the room, like this. Maybe we can make it a little bit more neutral. And finally, in the render settings, let's scroll down, and in the color management, you can increase the contrast setting here and increase the exposure if you think it's too dark, and that will kind of make the colors pop out a little bit more and make your scene a little bit more vibrant. And then of course you can always go back and readjust the brightness of your scene like this, and position and intensity of those lights. So yeah, that's it for the quick room illustration today. I really hope you enjoyed this one, and again, if you did, please leave that like, and if you want to learn more like this, hit that subscribe and check out my courses. The link is in the description. Thank you all for watching and have a wonderful day.